Hello all, it's good to be back. We're just between Christmas and New Year at the moment. I do hope you had a good one. I spent last weekend in hospital having a bit of surgery, and I must say thank you all very, very much for all the good wishes that I received via little YouTube messages. It was very much appreciated. It's going to be a bit of a Richard indoors video, this one. I'm just on light duties at the moment. I can do little walks, but I can't really lift anything particularly heavy. I certainly can't put a pack on my back. And yeah, as I say, I can't carry anything too heavy, so I wasn't allowed to carry a turkey for Christmas lunch, so that was quite good. So I've been racking my brains what to do. I've got a couple of little projects in mind, but one of the things I really admired seeing people do and thought, oh, I could never do that, is making a knife, a sort of a bushcraft style knife, and then hopefully make the sheath to go with it as well. I bought some components. I hope I bought the right sort of things and that they'll sort of balance each other out, as it were. And I'll take you through those little bits that I bought to show you how I'm going to make this knife. First, I think I need a cup of tea. See you in a minute. Right, back with you. Oh yeah, nice cup of tea. Right, I'll take you through a few of the components that I bought. First thing I have is this Mora knife blade. It's quite thin. I'm not sure whether it'll work on a ferro rod, but I've got quite a hefty bushcraft knife that I use, and I think this might be better for the sort of smaller duties around camp. I've also got a bit of 3mm flat brass bar here. I'm going to use this as a bolster, and this will be one of the first jobs I've got to do, which will be to cut off an appropriate size piece and make a hole for the tang of the knife. And this is what you call the tang. This is the bit that buries in the handle, and this particular style of knife is called the hidden tang. And just to add a little bit of colour, I've got this G10 fibre. I'm going to chop off 3 squares of that, and this will add just a little bit of colour to the edging between the bolster and the handle. And to help hold everything together, I've built this brace here, which I've got a bit of a leather stopper there. I'm going to put the handle end of the knife there and the blade pointing up the top, and then I'm just going to clamp it down once I glue the knife so that everything is held firmly. I knocked this up yesterday. It took me about an hour. I'm quite pleased with it because woodworking is not one of my best skills. So my first job is to chop the right size piece of this end of the brass bar and drill the holes and file them so it neatly accepts the tang of the knife to go through, so that ends up nice and flush. And once I've got that done, I've then got to polish very highly the face of this bolster, because it's the only time I'm going to be able to get to it to polish it properly when this blade's not in it. So it's very important with knife construction, as far as I've worked out from YouTube and so on, that everything is done in a specific order, because you can end up building too far ahead and then realizing, oh, I've got to polish that bit, or I've got to grind that bit down and I can't get to it now. So everything has to be done fairly methodically, and the first bit is to get this front face of the brass bolster nice and shiny. Right, so I've got my 3 pieces of lining, and I've now cut out the piece for my brass bolster. I might add, I've been using power tools here. I'm really lucky in that, a pal of mine has decided to emigrate, and he's cleared out his workshop of power tools, and he's very kindly given them to me. So I've got the use of an electric sort of coping saw, plus I've got a pillar drill as well, so it's really going to make light work of quite a few bits. But I have seen people make knives using hand tools, just hand tools, so it is possible, but I'm going to take the easy way out on my first attempt, I think. So next thing is to get this piece that's going to be my brass bolster and drill out the beginnings of the groove for the tang to go through. Now what I've done is just put the tang through the brass bolster and the 3 bits of lining, and I'm going to draw a line on my handle here. Oops, didn't want that to happen. For where and how I'm going to drill it, it's just going to be approximate a bit so it follows the outline. There we are. Got my block, and then I can make sure I drill in the right place. Well, I've got my knife handle in a block here, and I've got some extra long drill bits here. These are 120 mils long, and the idea is that when I'm getting these, I shall angle this block here so that my pillar drill, obviously I can't angle the pillar drill, but I can make this at an angle so that the drill bit will go right down the edge of each side here. And then I've got some cutting drill pieces which I'll help sort of link the holes together. Well, we learn as we go on. My pillar drill won't go down far enough into the wood, so I think the only way around that is to go as far as I can. At least that sets the line of the drilling correctly, and I'll do it for the other side of the tang, as it were, and then I'll put my drill bit on my hand drill and drill the rest of the way. And at least the direction of the holes will be already set by the pillar drill, and I shouldn't sway too much from those with the hand drill. Learning as we go. Well, I could do a pretty intense edit here and produce a video that would show me to be a woodworking, knife making genius, but I've had an absolute nightmare. I noticed a serious flaw in this first piece of oak that I was using. I'll just try and get it there. Yeah, you can see the split going right the way through, and it runs all the way through to here. I could epoxy it as I go, but I want to keep the wood as natural as it is. Second attempt, came out the side. There you go. Starting to run out of bog oak, so I thought I'd try something different. Oops. Came out the side. But finally, I'll show you what I've got. So I made my way in. I've got my 3 liner bits. I can't decide what colour order I'm going to go quite yet. Oh yes, forgot to show you. I'm on my 3rd piece of brass as well. Couldn't get the fit quite perfectly how I wanted it. But I can just line those up. Oh God. But now, if I put my brass bit and my spacers on, we now have a snug fit. So that was quite a lot of work. Next thing to do is make sure that I don't glue all this down now without remembering to now highly polish and buff up this brass plate here. Because once the blade's in there, can't really get to it to polish it up without maybe damaging the blade. So I'll get to work on that. That's P400 wet and dry, which I'll begin to work with it on, and then gradually I'll work on to P1000. And then I've got a buffer attachment for my Dremel drill with some polishing paste, which I'll use to get up to a nice shine. There we go. I'm just going to mix up some of this fairly slow setting epoxy. And there's our wax. And finally, I'll line up, hopefully, there we are, and in goes my knife. Well, the knife's had about 5 hours for the epoxy to set. It has set really hard, and there is the knife at the moment. It's quite rugged, but next thing I'm going to do is just start to sand using my disc sander now and square off the edges ready for the shaping. So that's made a good start on it. You can just see the linings coming nicely through there. I'm in good shape now to draw my handle shape, and I'm also going to take a look at the length of the whole thing and probably shorten this handle by about 1 inch or so. But I'm just going to measure it up against one of my other knives to make sure that I get the handle length right. Well, slowly getting there. I've just started to shape the brass bolster, and now what I'm going to do is draw on the handle approximate markings of the Coke bottle shape, so that I've got something to guide me during the next part of the sanding. I want to start off about here at 5/8. Then in the middle of the knife I want it up to about 1 inch. So about there. Then I want to come narrow again here, but then widen to about 1 inch again. I'm just going to use a French curve here to give myself a little bit of an idea of where I'm sanding to. I do these long pauses between words, sorry about that, because I start talking and then concentrate, and I can't do two things at the same time. But there we go. And there's got approximate shape of the top of the handle. Making good progress. I've shaped the knife a bit now on the belt sander. Came up with a flaw there, and it's just where one of my drill pieces had got a little bit close to the edge, but I filled it with epoxy, and hopefully that won't show up too much when I get to the finishing touches with the sanding paper. So what I'm going to do now is just some manual sanding. I've got a box of different lengths of abrasive paper, 150 grit up to 400. Then after the 400, I've actually got some different grades of wire wool, steel wool. And finally, I will get as far as, that's 1000 grit. I've even got a little bit thinner than that, but I'm just going to work my way probably through about 6 stages, I think, all in all, maybe 7 stages of hand sanding with the different grits. I'll just see how it goes. So I think this is quite a long process, but yeah, I'm quite pleased with the initial shaping, and yeah, we'll see how we get on. You can just see the beginnings of a really nice grain pattern emerging here from the wood, which I hope to enhance a lot more with as I go down the grits, and use obviously some oil at the end, but that could be a lovely pattern. It's coming all through the wood. Well, it just seems to be loads of video of me sanding away, but that is actually all I'm doing at the moment. I'm really pleased with the way the shape of the handle's coming along. Obviously got that slight imperfection of the little misdrilled hole there, which I filled with epoxy, but it's coming really nicely. I'm getting the symmetry sorted out now. It's really important that I have a nice symmetrical sort of Coke bottle shape, and working my way up the grits. So not a lot to show really video wise. I'll work my way through the grits, and when I've got the handle to the shape and the smoothness that I want, then we'll go about finishing it off with a bit of boiled linseed oil. But for now, I'll just get back to the sanding. Ugh. Well, I think we're there. I'm just going to mask off this piece of the wood now, just to get my Dremel out and give the brass bit a final polish off so there are no lines on it. But I think it's shortly time to reveal the blade. That handle is deadly smooth. It feels really good. I'm I'll get quite excited about seeing the whole thing with the tape off now. So now's the moment of truth. I've worked through up to P1500 on the wet and dry paper. I've gone to some very thin wire wool just to get this handle sorted. I've now just polished up the boss, and it's time to take the tape off the blade. Whew. Let's give it a go. I'm very pleased. And there you have it. I haven't done the handle yet, but ooh, one casualty on the way. There it is. I'm absolutely over the moon with that. I'm just going to linseed oil the handle now, and we'll see how it looks. Wow. Oh, wow. This will need quite a few coats, but already see how that's coming out. Well, there she is. Just a bit of oil to soak in there. Thank you very much for joining me on this. I actually feel a little bit emotional about making this. I've just never done anything like this, and I've watched other people do it and thought, God, I've just been green with envy. And finally I've just, got myself together and done it. And yeah, it's taken a while and it's taken a lot of detail, but technically it's not the most difficult thing to do. And I've got the bug now. I want to make some more. I'm going to make a case for it, but for now I'm just going to enjoy looking at it. Thank you so much for joining me on this. It's been a real pleasure, real learning process as well. Lots of trial, lots of error. I did use power tools, so if you think about doing this, when I come to think of it, the only tool that I really used a lot was the belt sander, and that was just to get the initial shape of the handle, and it could be easily done with a rasping file. So as far as power tools, really no, because the meat of making this knife was really in the hand sanding and the detail with the little strips of different grade wet and dry paper. So yeah, pleased as anything. Thank you very much for joining. Please subscribe. I'm about 4,200 subscribers at the moment. Really like to get that 5,000 up. I'm planning a great giveaway. So click subscribe and set an alert, and I very much look forward to seeing you again.